Every morning, you fill a bowl with kibble. It takes what, like maybe 10
Yeah,
seconds?
barely even that.
Right. You scoop, you pour, you set it down, you hear that familiar crunching sound, and then you just sort of move on with your day.
Right.
But that incredibly mundane act is actually setting off this massive biological cascade. You are fundamentally dictating the physical blueprint of your dog's future. Literally, cellular decision by cellular decision.
We really tend to view food merely as, I don't know, gasoline for a car.
Totally.
We think the tank is empty. I need to fill it so the dog can run around the yard today. But biological nutrition is just entirely different. It's an active construction site.
Yeah.
The food in that bowl represents the raw physical materials that will be used to either build a resilient, long-lasting structure or, well, a fragile one that just slowly degrades under pressure.
Which brings us to our source material for today. We're doing a deep dive into a really detailed transcript from the German Shepherd Health Academy, all about nutrition.
Yeah, it's a great source.
And our mission here is to really decode the science of canine nutrition, using the German Shepherd as our ultimate case study for these large, athletic, working-type breeds. We're going to figure out how what goes into the bowl quietly shapes everything from their joints to their overall longevity.
Because nutrition isn't just fuel, it's the foundation. You can do all the training and the vet visits perfectly, but if the daily nutrition is off for years, it will inevitably show up in the dog's health.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the foundational materials. If the dog's body is a bustling high-rise construction site, like you said, the macronutrients are the steel, the concrete, and the drywall.
Right. And just like a high-rise, the required volume of those materials is, well, it's never static.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, the energy equation, like the sheer caloric intake a dog requires, is highly variable. A working German Shepherd doing agility runs or, police tracking is burning through cellular energy at a completely different velocity than a companion dog of the exact same breed and weight.
Even if they're literally the same size.
Exactly. The one sleeping on the couch most of the day, their metabolism is just running on an entirely different gear.
Let's look at the specific materials going into that site then. For a muscular breed, protein is essentially the structural steel, right?
Yeah, it provides the amino acids required for muscle maintenance and just constant tissue repair.
Right. But where I find the biology really counterintuitive is when we look at fats. Because, human diet culture has conditioned us to view dietary fat as the enemy.
Oh, absolutely. As something to be minimized at all costs.
Yeah. But if you apply that human bias to a German Shepherd, you're going to physically wreck the dog.
You will. You'll destroy their most prominent feature, which is their double coat. German Shepherds have a dense, weather-resistant outer coat and a really thick insulating undercoat.
Right.
And maintaining that barrier requires just a staggering amount of biological energy. Fats, specifically essential fatty acids like linoleic acid, they're the primary biological drivers here.
So they aren't just empty calories.
Not at all.
Yeah.
They fuel the production of sebum, which is the natural oil secreted by the skin's sebaceous glands.
Wait, so the fat in the diet is literally being synthesized into a waterproofing agent for the fur.
Exactly. It creates the lipid barrier. Without adequate dietary fats, sebum production just plummets.
Wow.
The skin loses its moisture retention, it becomes flaky, the hair follicles weaken, and that beautiful weather-resistant coat turns brittle and dull.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the skin is the largest organ in the body. So in a heavily coated breed, it's the very first place you will see the structural degradation from a low-fat diet. It is functional, necessary fuel, not just empty weight.
Okay, so if protein is the steel and fat is the waterproofing, then you have the concrete of our construction site, the minerals.
Right.
Carbohydrates provide the immediate energy and dietary fiber for the gut microbiome, sure, but the minerals really dictate the skeletal architecture. We have to talk about calcium and phosphorus.
Yeah, this is huge.
During the puppy phase, especially for large breeds, the ratio between these two minerals has to be biologically precise.
It really does. The mechanism here is endochondral ossification, which is
a mouthful.
Yeah, it's a big word. It just means the process by which a puppy's cartilage turns into hardened bone. And in large breeds, this process happens at an incredibly accelerated rate.
Because they grow so fast.
Exactly. So if the ratio of calcium to phosphorus is off by even a really slight margin, the cartilage grows too rapidly and it fails to mineralize correctly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you end up with microfractures inside the joint capsule or developmental conditions where actual flaps of cartilage peel away from the
Oh,
bone.
that sounds awful. So it's basically like pouring concrete with the wrong water to cement ratio.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Like, it might look totally fine on day one, but a year later, the foundation is cracking under the weight of the house. Which, I mean, that brings up a massive logistical problem for the everyday dog owner. If the precise ratio of calcium to phosphorus is that critical to preventing these microscopic joint fractures, how do you verify the deliveries?
Right, like how do you actually know what's in the bag?
Exactly. How do you know what you're pulling off the shelf at the pet store is right?
Well, you have to really navigate the regulatory language on the label. Specifically, you're looking for the phrase complete and balanced for a designated life stage.
Complete and balanced.
Right. That phrasing guarantees the food has been formulated to meet established nutritional baselines for those critical macronutrients and minerals we just talked about.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here, because this is where the practical application gets kind of muddy for me.
Sure.
If I buy a premium bag of food and it legally carries that complete and balanced designation for, say, large breed adults, why shouldn't I just trust the feeding chart printed on the back of the bag? Like, if the bag says a 70-pound dog gets 3 cups a day and I feed exactly 3 cups right on the dot, why is that considered a risky strategy? Why do I need to involve my vet?
Because that feeding chart is built for a statistical ghost.
A statistical ghost.
Yeah. The guidelines are formulated based on the mathematical median of all dogs in that weight class. The manufacturer has to assume an average metabolism, an average daily temperature, an average activity level.
Right.
But your dog is not an average. Your dog has a totally unique basal metabolic rate and a highly specific daily routine.
So the label is really just a starting line, not the finish line.
Exactly. It provides the initial baseline, but fine-tuning the daily volume to match the biological reality of your specific dog
Yeah.
that requires continuous physical assessment.
Got it. And before we move past the daily intake, we have to talk about the transport system on this construction site, hydration.
Yes, water is the great enabler of nutrition. We fixate so heavily on the kibble that we completely forget water is the biological solvent required to actually utilize those nutrients.
Right. Without adequate water, the steel and concrete are just sort of sitting idle on the loading dock. Blood plasma volume drops, which means oxygen and nutrients aren't efficiently delivered to the muscles during exercise.
And it directly impacts joint health as well.
Yeah.
Synovial fluid, which is that viscous liquid that lubricates the cartilage in the hips and elbows,
Yeah.
that is primarily water. If a highly active dog is even mildly chronically dehydrated, that fluid loses its optimal viscosity,
They get stiff.
right? You get increased friction in the joint capsule. Furthermore, dogs regulate their core temperature through panting, which evaporates moisture from their respiratory tract.
Yeah.
But for a large dog with a thick double coat in a warm climate, optimal hydration isn't just about digestion, it's a critical safety mechanism against heat stroke.
The underlying theme here seems to be that a dog's physiology is profoundly dynamic. Like, a static label on a bag fails because the dog is constantly moving through different biological chapters.
Yes, exactly.
Which brings us to the complexities of life stages. The nutritional needs of a dog are just a constantly moving target.
They are. And we can trace that evolution quite clearly. During puppyhood, the biological directive is rapid construction, like we said.
Right.
The cellular machinery is just working overtime to lay down bone density and muscle mass, so they require a calorie-dense diet with those very strict mineral ratios.
But then you hit a physiological wall, right? Sometime around, 1 to 2 years of age for a German Shepherd, skeletal growth just concludes.
Yes, and the biological directive fundamentally shifts from grow to maintain. The basal metabolic rate drops significantly.
And then it happens again later.
Right. Later in life, they enter the senior stage, and the metabolic rate drops yet again, usually accompanied by a decrease in intense physical activity.
So what happens if you don't adjust for that?
Well, the most frequent slow-motion disaster in canine nutrition happens right there when owners fail to adapt to these shifts. The dog's cellular engine slows down, their daily output drops, but the owner just continues feeding the exact same volume of food they provided when the dog was a highly active 2-year-old.
Wow. And the excess energy has absolutely nowhere to go except into fat storage.
So nowhere else.
And it happens at such a glacial pace, like a few extra ounces a month, and suddenly you have a senior dog carrying 10 pounds of excess weight.
Exactly.
But the main meals are really only part of the equation here. We have to look at the massive blind spot for most owners, the extras. The treats, the table scraps, the ends of sandwiches.
Yes. This is really the intersection of nutrition and human emotion. We use food as our primary language of affection.
Right. It feels completely harmless in the moment to toss them a piece of cheese or a few French fries. But I mean, treating them heavily from the table is basically like tossing random, unmeasured parts into a finely tuned engine, right?
That's exactly what it is. Let's look at the concept of nutrient dilution. Okay, if your dog requires 1,000 calories a day, and the kibble is perfectly formulated to deliver the exact required ratios of protein, calcium, and essential fatty acids within those 1,000 calories,
Yeah.
what happens when you introduce human food?
Right. You mess up the math.
Exactly. If 200 of those daily calories are now coming from random treats and table scraps, you haven't just added calories. You have displaced 20% of their nutritional baseline.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
You are filling their caloric quota with empty energy, fats, and simple carbohydrates that completely lack the necessary micronutrients. Over a week, it doesn't matter. But over 5 years, you are systematically starving the dog's skeletal and immune systems of 20% of their required materials.
All while likely driving them right into obesity.
Precisely.
So you are unbalancing the balanced diet, you're tossing random materials into the construction site and expecting the high-rise to just stay structurally sound.
Yes, and this ties into another frequent error we see.
Yeah.
The sudden diet switch. Owners often project human psychology onto their dogs, assuming the dog is, bored with their food, so they just abruptly switch to a new brand on a Tuesday.
And that's a problem because
Because the canine gut microbiome is a highly specialized environment. The bacteria in their digestive tract adapt specifically to the macronutrient profile of their current diet.
Okay.
So when you introduce a radically different profile of proteins and carbohydrates overnight, the existing bacteria just cannot process it efficiently.
And then you get the messy consequences.
Right. The result is acute gastrointestinal inflammation, which presents as severe diarrhea and vomiting. Any transition needs to be a gradual, multi-day blending process to allow the microbiome time to physically adapt to the new chemical breakdown requirements.
So active management is basically non-negotiable.
It is.
But this presents a pretty significant practical challenge for you, the listener. If the metabolic rate is invisible and life stages are a constantly moving target, how do you actually measure success? You can't just put them on a standard bathroom scale, right?
No, because an 80-pound German Shepherd could be dangerously obese or perfectly muscular, depending entirely on their specific frame size.
So what do we use?
The scale is a blunt instrument. The clinical metric is the body condition score, or BCS.
The BCS.
Yes, this is a visual and tactile assessment of how the weight is actually distributed across the dog's frame. It's truly the most powerful diagnostic tool an owner can learn.
Let's break down the mechanics of the BCS then. To identify a healthy, lean condition, you have to use your hands, right?
You do.
You run your palms lightly over the dog's rib cage. You should be able to clearly feel the individual ribs under a very thin, supple layer of fat without having to apply any significant downward pressure.
Exactly. And visually, from above, the dog should have a distinct hourglass waistline dipping in just behind the rib cage.
Oh, okay.
From a profile view, there must be an abdominal tuck, meaning the underside of the chest should sweep sharply upward toward the hind legs rather than hanging flat or bulging downward.
So if you have to push through a spongy layer to locate the ribs, or if the dog looks like a solid cylinder from above without any waist, they are carrying excess fat.
Right.
But let's elevate this beyond just a cosmetic issue. Let's look at the advanced biology of what that excess fat is actually doing, because this is where the science gets incredibly urgent in the deep dive. Fat is not just a heavy, inert backpack the dog is forced to carry around.
No, and that is the most critical misconception out there. Adipose tissue, white fat, is biologically active. It functions as a massive endocrine organ.
Really?
Yeah. When a dog carries excess fat, that tissue is constantly secreting inflammatory cytokines into the bloodstream.
So it's systemic inflammation.
Yes, the dog is experiencing a low-grade, chronic inflammatory state. When we talk about joint destruction in an overweight large breed, it's a devastating dual mechanism.
Okay, dual mechanism, break that down.
First, you have the mechanical stress. Every time the dog jumps off the bed or chases a ball, the excess physical weight is literally crushing the cartilage in the elbows and hips. But simultaneously, those inflammatory cytokines secreted by the fat are chemically degrading the joint tissue from the inside out.
Man, the fat is literally bathing the joints in an inflammatory acid while simultaneously crushing them.
It is.
That completely reframes the emotional dynamic of feeding. Because we all know the famous "I'm starving" routine.
Oh, yes.
A German Shepherd can lock onto you with those intense, soulful puppy dog eyes, acting as if they haven't seen a meal in a month, mere seconds after licking their bowl clean.
Yep.
It feels like love to give in and hand them another biscuit. I mean, how is an owner supposed to stay strong when faced with that level of emotional manipulation?
You really have to intellectualize that interaction. The dog is an opportunistic scavenger by nature. Their evolutionary wiring tells them to consume calories whenever they're available, regardless of whether they actually need the energy.
Right.
They're not starving. They are executing a survival instinct.
So when you look at the biology of adipose tissue, giving in to those puppy dog eyes isn't an act of love, it's actually an act of biological harm.
It truly is. Practicing strict portion control and maintaining a lean body condition score is quite literally a medical intervention. It's the single most effective preventative medicine you can offer. Keeping a large brain lean drastically delays the onset of osteoarthritis. It protects the structural integrity of the cruciate ligaments and undeniably extends their functional lifespan.
You're buying them years.
You are buying them years of pain-free mobility by simply saying no to the extra handful of kibble today.
The cumulative impact of these daily micro decisions is just staggering. So let's synthesize the core architectural principles we've covered today. First, energy intake must be ruthlessly matched to the dog's actual physical output, adapting constantly as they transition from the rapid growth puppy phase through adulthood and into their senior metabolic slowdown.
Right. And second, the foundation must be built on a diet validated as complete and balanced for their specific life stage. This ensures the precise mathematical ratios of proteins, essential fatty acids for that lipid barrier, and minerals for endochondral ossification are met.
Third, rely heavily on tactile reality over printed guidelines. Use the body condition score to actively monitor systemic inflammation risks. If the ribs disappear, the food volume drops.
Exactly. And fourth, mathematically protect the nutrient density of their diet by keeping treats to an absolute minimum, preventing the silent, long-term degradation of nutrient dilution.
And finally, any structural changes to this protocol, like shifting diets, addressing chronic digestive issues, or managing sudden weight fluctuations, that requires the oversight of a veterinarian who can evaluate the individual metabolic reality of your dog.
And, there are organizational tools designed to help you manage this data. The source mentions the VitalPet app, which functions as an excellent digital ledger for owners.
Yay.
You can track weight trends, log feeding volumes, and store medical records. It organizes the raw data, allowing you to spot long-term physical trends before they become clinical emergencies.
But, and this is key, the app is just a tracking ledger. It does not replace the project manager, which is your vet. The data is only useful if it informs a medical conversation. The responsibility ultimately sits with the person holding the scoop. What you drop into that bowl every morning and evening is the most consistent, powerful physiological variable in your dog's life.
Absolutely. You are actively managing a complex biological system. Every meal is an opportunity to reinforce their structural integrity.
It requires discipline, sure,
Right.
but it offers an incredible level of control over their health trajectory. Which brings us to a lingering, slightly uncomfortable question to chew on as we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
When we fully understand the dual mechanical and chemical destruction caused by even a minor amount of excess adipose tissue, and we see how precise the mineral requirements are for long-term joint stability,
Yeah.
it forces a reevaluation. Are the chronic mobility issues, the stiffness, the limping, the arthritis that we so readily dismiss as just the normal aging process in large dogs, are they actually normal?
Yeah.
Or are we simply witnessing the delayed, long-term echoes of a decade of slight, affectionate overfeeding? Something to think about. The next time you grab that scoop, remember the stakes. You are not just ending their hunger for the morning. You are physically constructing the body they will have to live in tomorrow.